Shalom, dear friends, wonderful to be with you. Today we are going to do a very special program and we never spoke about this subject. Susan, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me, Nathalie.
You're welcome. Susan is a rabbi. She comes from the USA and she came to Israel with some children, 3 of biological, and she added 2 children who were adopted internationally, which is important because it's like a bit different than just kids who are like the same culture and everything. And you came, I want to give a bit of background. You came from America, you make Aliyah, you're coming to Israel. Do you know why?
Yeah, no. I say that jokingly, but sort of true. We originally came to Israel thinking we would stay for 2 years. We have 5 kids, and we had just adopted the 5th child to join our family, although he was the 4th age-wise and among the kids. And we thought, oh, we have this new kid. You know, we need to like adjust as a family. Let's get out of the whole American rat race mortgage struggle. And we moved to a kibbutz in the south, kibbutz Keturah, where we had thought we'd stay for 2 years. We ended up staying for 3 years, and it was really magical. And we got to kind of like
family time,
breathe, and just kind of congeal as a family. And then from there, you know, I had a work thing open up for me in Jerusalem, and Yosef was doing work in Israel, and so we moved to Jerusalem, and we just sort of stayed.
And you stayed.
Right.
Okay.
It wasn't some big ideological move. We just kind of, yeah.
So you wrote a book, Casting Lots. What is it about?
So the book is about how parenting my children, our 5 kids, but really focusing on our older sons. Our kids are, our daughters are bio and our boys are adopted from Ethiopia. So as I say, we produce girls and import boys. And I realized that through adoption, my relationship with Judaism, with God, really deepened in a way that it hadn't by just sort of practicing Jewish life. But that raising him in this world is what really kind of gave me a place to stand as a Jew.
This is wonderful. I love your book, again, like because you write it as a Jewish writer. So you put things that maybe some Christians haven't heard, but this is a great way of learning and seeing also the depths of Judaism, and which is not like a ism, it's like a way of living, which is, I love that. And we're trying to give to the people understanding, you know, how the Jewish people think, and so it's a great way of learning. Now, something I find also in your book, which was really amazing for me, sometimes we try to make life perfect, and life is not perfect.
Right.
So when you were speaking about Moses, oh my gosh, this really touched me. You speak about Moses who has the broken pieces, and he's taking the broken pieces and the Torah, the tablets,
Right.
but the 2 together. And I think in our life, if we start to see this broken thing and the one who is not broken, but it's like all part of our life, your book really touched me for that. And I think when you read your book, it's like, okay, maybe give a bit of your background too, because you are from a special family. 2 sets of parents.
Right, like a whole bunch of parents.
Yeah, exactly.
And 4 sisters. We're 4 sisters.
So why did you adopt?
I think I was really influenced by my parents being foster parents, and
So
I just
you could
knew
see the issue.
I could see it. I could see that kids needed families, and that the family was the core for kids. That if they were out on their own in the world, there was no hope for them on a million levels. You know, on a practical level, on a safety level, that kids who are outside of family care are at a very high risk of being trafficked. But also just in a soul way, just a place that is home. And so I've always known that I wanted to adopt since I was a little kid. And Yosef, my husband, Yosef Abramowitz, who is also very blessed to have been on your show, and he really loved you all, and in sense his love and his regards.
Him.
Yeah,
like seeing this Captain Sunshine.
Yes.
This is what he is.
Yes, he's very optimistic. So I basically said to him, we're going to adopt. And he had never thought of adopting before, but he said, yeah, sure. And so we just built our family that way.
Because it's a big job. It's a big job. Yeah, first of all, it's a big job, but it's like you have to think about it, and it's like a process, you know, there is all these things. How was it for your children?
For the girls?
Yeah, for the girls.
Yeah, so when we adopted our older son, we had 2 daughters, and they were ecstatic. They were over the moon ecstatic for their new brother. And then after he came home, then we had another daughter, another biological child. And then after her, we adopted our son Zamir, who was a little bit older. He was older than our youngest. And I remember when I was getting on the plane to go get Zamir, our son from Ethiopia, our little daughter Ashira, who was 2, goes, "Bye, Mama, go get my butter."
Oh, this is cute. Now, I remember also in the book, you speak about like your first son, and he's saying, because he was Ethiopian and you were all white in the family, he was like, "Hey, I'm brown." So it was an issue for him.
When he was little, he said, he's like, you know, I'm brown and it's white. He said, "It's no fair. I want a brown brother."
Which is he had after a few years.
And he had a lot of questions about his birth family.
This is interesting. Now, when we look a bit about what's happening for adoption, first of all, they call it like the adoption cliff. Do you want to speak about it? Because
yes,
I think
do.
This is an issue who are not spoken about it. And even us, you know, it's the first time that we are speaking about adoption. And I think it's very close to God's heart too. We can maybe speak a bit about that. Anyway, so tell us a bit about like the fact that adoption, there is a cliff about that.
The international adoption cliff, right. So there is a lot of opposition to international adoption, and for some good and smart reasons, and for some not good and not smart reasons. And what happens is the kids suffer. The kids become pawns of political games. Basically, we're sacrificing children on the altars of politics and on the altars of ideology. And we need to have an international system that supports families so that kids are not being placed in institutions or end up on the street because the family can't afford or have the resources to take care of their child. You know, if the child is typical, if the child has special needs, families need to be able to have the resources that they are able to do that. And then they're not forced to place their child somewhere else for that child to survive. A. B, there has to be support to reunify kids with families and to find local foster and adoptive families. But you can't discount international adoption as an option for some children, the only chance that they will have at a family. And if you don't do that, if you sacrifice those children because you say we don't want to give up
the heritage,
this,
and it's like,
then nobody would choose that for themselves, but they'll choose it for kids because of a national pride. You know, I mean, I'm a rabbi. I care about Judaism, but I would never see Judaism as something I sacrifice a human being for. It's not its own thing. It's a way of humans being in the world. And when we make it an altar, something that we worship separately, that's really problematic. And I think that's true for any culture. We can't sacrifice children on the altar of what we see as our culture, because first of all, the kids aren't raised in the beauty of that culture. They're struggling to survive or worse. So we need to be able to do all of these things and to look to all of these possibilities, but in a timely fashion. Because children who stay in institutions lose an IQ point a month. Kids in Romania are going blind because they're looking at white ceilings and not developing their optic nerves.
Yes, I was looking at
We can't sacrifice children for these ideologies. We need to figure it out, and we have the technology to do it. We just don't make it a priority.
I totally agree. I saw when I was doing some research for the program that you have people now who are like smart and saying, okay, we need to use smart tools to be able to show the people this is a very big issue. And I would say this is a humanitarian issue, because like we speak more and more about the global village, and it is true. And like with all the communication now, it's like so important. But this thing, as you say, is just put on the side, and it's like the potential of people. Now, I like also with the Jewish people, you say like Tselem Elohim, who are made all in the image of God.
Right.
So everybody should have the chance. And when you think, I mean, I know we can think 10 million, 80 million, 140 million orphan. We're not going through that. But it's like, even like in Uganda, where we've been, the numbers were totally changing.
And you know
depending with who we are speaking.
Right. And it doesn't have to be that way. We don't have to be guessing how many children are outside of family care.
Yeah, there is one.
We have the technology to know.
I saw again a video yesterday where you could see the child. I mean, like, we know we want to be loved, and we want to love, and we want to be loved. So a child who doesn't have this connection is just crazy. Now, you live in Israel. Mm-hmm. Israel is an amazing place, but has also some struggle to know who they are, what they come from, where are they going. What's happening about adoption? Because I think it's important. Again, Israel has been like at the point of so many new things. And what's happening about adoption in Israel?
Right. So there's really almost no international adoption here. There was much more, and it kind of closed down, as it did in a lot of places. And I know there's conversation about reopening it. Here's the thing. We need to stop looking at adoption as solely a way for an adult to become a parent, right? Like, we think of it as, okay, if the biological path didn't work out or isn't an option, then adoption is a way for adults to become a parent. That's perfectly fine. But we need to also, and I would say primarily, think about adoption as a way for a child to get a family. And once we switch that mindset, once we say, we have an obligation to the children of the world for them to have families, and that child might be a newborn and that child might be 17 and a half years old, but either way, that child deserves a family, then everything flips. And then you start create adoption agencies that are looking for kids who don't have any other option for a family than adoption and getting them into families. And it's about being able to do that in a way that can be efficient and expedient and accurate.
Yeah, because again, the child is growing, so it's like it needs to be a process not so long. And like, this is very interesting what you say, because like when you have a child, it's 9 months. If you want it or not, sometimes it's a surprise. But it's like the child is there after 9 months. And sometimes adoption can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It's just crazy.
It's because we're not prioritizing it. We're just not, as a world, prioritizing it. We need to get kids into families. Ideally, keeping them in their families. Next, ideally, returning them to their families. But we have to do that in a way that's expedient and not in a way that kids are spending years in orphanages.
Yeah, and it's like they are wasting some of their potential when it's like that. Now, I heard, and this is just amazing, that you wanted, and let me know if it's still your dream, that Israel could be the place where it should be the center for making the people thinking about adoption and being again a startup nation for adoption. What do you think about that?
So we could, listen, as a startup nation, we are such an innovative country. There are ways in which I feel like we're so backward, and there are ways in which we are so innovative. I want to see us applying our innovation to the moral issues of the world. And we do in a lot of ways. We do a ton of that. But also, we could apply it to, first of all, to asylum seekers here, right? We, in terms of the African asylum seekers who are in Israel, we could create a startup nation university for refugees, where people are trained in what we have to offer, that when it's safe to go home to Eritrea, you could have 1.5 million Eritreans with Israeli technology turning Eritrea into a startup nation. Like, that's being a light unto the nations. But we could do the same with adoption, right? For kids.
I agree. It's
why are we not using this, this Israeli brain?
So is there something happening? Do you know people who are thinking about it, who want to do something?
In terms of asylum seekers or adoption?
No, adoption.
So there is I just got a message a couple days ago, so I don't know a lot about it, saying that there are some people in government who want to start thinking about international adoption. Would I be willing to come? Join some meetings. So I hope that it's going to mean an opening it up. And what I think I have to offer to that group is this shift of the paradigm of saying, yeah, it's great for adults to become parents if that's what they want, and adoption's a great route for doing that. but I want us to think as Jews about kids getting families.
Now, this is very interesting. And you know, it's like we adopted also a little girl many years ago. And one of the verses that I really loved was from Psalm 68. And it's like God is putting the lonely in families. But when you look in the Hebrew, it's like God is settling the individuals, but they are individuals, so they are like all special and unique, and they are putting them in homes, not families. It's a bite in the house, because the house is what needs, like institution is not the thing. It's killing the soul of the child, I think.
Well, when you bring up the orphan, the widow, and the stranger, what do those three categories have in common is that they don't have agency in the world of their own, nor do they have someone with agency who's saying to them, I got you. I got your back. And that's what we need to do with those categories of people. Mainly now, of course, like the orphan and the stranger. Widows that women thank God have a different status in the world weren't so dependent. So,
but before they
but
were,
we need to say, like, you are a person without agency. I've got agency in this culture, in this community, and I'm going to use my agency for you. I got your back. And when you talk about also like into communities, my organization is called Second Nurture. And every child deserves a family and a community. And what we do is we partner with communities to help them to support families in fostering and adopting kids, so that the community is prioritizing, supporting, and reflecting adoption. Because people often feel like it's too much for them to adopt from foster care an older child, a sibling group, kids with special needs. But if they know that their community has their back, then they're going to move forward. And so we have cohorts beginning already, one with 12 families in it, with their kids home from foster care. And it's a beautiful thing to see the community really rising up to support them in practical ways, in just spiritual ways, and emotional ways, and just the phone call that says, can I bring you dinner? Or one family who they lost their home office because when their child came home, it became his bedroom. And the community got them an office for free, forever. Wow. Like just any, all of these things. And so when you talk about community, the yechidim, people who are individual being brought into a bite, who's part of a community, that's what it's about. Because our whole community has to rise up and say, we've got you.
This is important. And when you see, when you speak about that, I'm thinking also like about the Bible. There were some very interesting orphans in the Bible, like Moses, Esther.
That's right.
I mean, they were like people, Ruth, they were like used for a very special purpose. And my husband was adopted too, and it's like God is giving a chance again to the people to have a life. And it's like getting older, maybe you can reflect more on these things. And I was saying, wow, like Martin's parents took the time and say, okay, we don't have kids, we want to have a kid. We are taking the risk because it's, but like what a beautiful risk. Like I can see your kids together. And now interesting enough, because they're Ethiopian, in Israel, it's not a problem.
No, it's not. It's just normal, right?
Exactly. Israeli, they are like coming from all around the world now. I mean, it's even more. You see Chinese people, Indian. So it's like, again, wow, this is exciting, thinking, okay, this is part again of redemption. We speak about redemption this last few program because we can see things happening, especially in Israel. And I think this thing is also part of what can, what can happen. And like God wants to see all these orphans. I mean, it's a terrible things. And we haven't looked at this issue.
Right.
We haven't taken it seriously. Friends, I'm speaking with Susan Silverman. By the way, she is also the sister of Sarah Silverman, who is a comedian in America. So this is cool. Just, it's just cool.
It is cool.
It's just cool. And we're speaking about the subject of adoption. And I think this is something beautiful. And maybe you have some question about that. You can speak to Susan, or you can speak also to me, and I can pass the information, and you can speak with her directly. I think, Susan, one of the things, I'm happy to know that the Knesset is asking you to come, because when you adopt, it's not just one thing that you are doing. Is like your life is going to be transformed. You are learning a lot of different things. You have to think in a different way, I think, forever, because you are adding somebody into your home. Was it a loss or was it a gain?
Oh my gosh, it's a gain.
Yes.
It's a gain. Listen,
but
you
some
guys
people,
are...
do you understand? Because you have a balance. It's like you are losing certain things, but you are gaining something. So
But
for
that's
you,
what it is. Each of my 5 kids, completely what it is. And I feel really blessed to have both bio kids and have adopted, because you see how differently you love all of your kids, right? It's just, each one is a different chemistry, right? It just is. And so it's just been an incredible gift. And people say like, oh, hard, is it hard to raise? Like my bio daughters, my big ones, were nightmares to raise as teenagers. My boys,
interesting.
Nope.
Listen, friends, you have, if you want to read a book, the story of Susan is called Casting Lots. It's a beautiful book because it's like speaking about adoption, but it's giving you also some like a Jewish way of thinking, and which can deepen our understanding of the world. Why did you write the book?
I just found myself, when Adar first came home, I found myself with kind of like deeper thoughts than I usually had. You know, like I was like these kind of like profound, like, it's funny, I'm a rabbi, but I'm not like a big God person, right? I hadn't been. But when he came home, all of a sudden I started feeling God in my life in this much more deep way. And I started just kind of taking notes about it, just writing about it, because I didn't know what to do with these thoughts and feelings, and how like organic now Judaism started feeling to me. And I just started taking notes, and then I started writing, and it evolved into, you know, sort of some possible chapters. And so I just started making it into a book just to see.
How was it for the children to have their life, you know, in front of everybody in the book? Did they mind, or?
Well, only the 2 big girls have read it.
Okay.
And the boys, before it was published, I said, okay, guys, this is it. Read it. And if you have any complaints, you tell me now. Otherwise, you don't get to complain. That's it. And they were like, it's fine. You know, we have sort of a public life anyway, like on a small scale, but then also my sister makes it like on a slightly bigger scale, and they're accustomed to it. So it didn't feel to them like a big deal. Maybe one day they'll want to kill me.
I think for me, it was really nice to come into your life and see the mess and the order, you know, the mess and the order. And it's like, you have to balance all these things. Like, God is a God of order, but like life is very messy.
Life is very messy.
Yeah.
And it was really important to me just to be honest and not to try to put on like a face, but just show like, it's hard, and sometimes our marriage sucks because everything's hard, and sometimes I want to kill my kids because everything's hard, and sometimes I want to I feel like to myself like, oh my God, I'm the worst mother, because I did really bad things as a mother. You know, I did like some things I did as a mom, like are things that I wish I could do over again. But you have to be honest about those things, because otherwise we can't grow from each other, and we can't trust each other, and we can't rely on each other. And I just wanted to be a voice out there that says like,
and the dialogue and
you're
the
not
reality
alone in feeling like a crappy mom.
is messy.
Right.
So, and you had to clear up the mess.
Right.
One thing that you say in the book is like, God is in heaven, but we are his hands also on earth. This, I really love that. Could you explain, is that something in your life personally, or is it something, a very Jewish way of looking at the world?
It's something I've always felt. So I was raised in a family that's atheist. Like my parents were like, religion is for idiots. And so I became a rabbi, of course, because that's how you rebel in my family. And, but one thing my parents always taught was that you need to take care of people. You know, so my dad, like he was in business, And as part of his business, he always was hiring teenagers from the foster care system, because no one would ever hire them. And that way he could sort of have a relationship with them and mentor them. And, you know, he also left the door open to his store in Manchester, New Hampshire during the winter so that homeless people would have a warm place to sleep at night. Like, he was like, you have to be conscientious of the people around you. And that was, to him, like, there's no God, there's us. And so for me, the extension of that as someone who does have a relationship with God and does think about the world that way is that we're an extension of that. And what's the purpose? What's the purpose if we're not?
I know, I totally agree. But this is beautiful. Like, it's interesting. Again, I'm getting older. You could see, you know, more, I don't know, you see life differently. And like, you see the heritage that your parents are giving you. Like, that is reflecting more and more maybe in your life when you get older, but who has shaped you. And so you're like, well, thank you, God, for my father and my dad, and my father and my mother. And, you know, it's like, yeah. So, you see, because we say thank you for our father and for our mother, it's like, just think about the kids who are waiting to have a father and a mother. And like, just think about it. And just, what can you do about it? Maybe get involved, maybe think about it. Maybe you are young and you can't have children and you never thought about adopting, and it's like, well, maybe this is a way for me to have a bigger heart and give a life to these children. Susan, thank you, because I think what you were saying about not the parents having children, is the children having parents. And they need that. So, friends, I hope that you enjoy. I enjoy it.
Oh,
Susan, thank you for coming.
being with you. Thank you.
You're welcome. We have to see each other again.
I would love that.
It will be very good. And from me and from Susan, bye and see you next week.